learned that an electron is a spin half particle. Irfan or Hassan Bacho. The electron is a spin half particle. How do we know that? We know that because we perform an experiment. And what does the experiment look like? We pass our electrons through a Stern-Gerlach apparatus, north pole, south pole, such that there exists a field gradient. The field is non-uniform. Correct? And what we observe is that two beams emerge, which means, and if we have a screen here, we will observe two discrete spots on the screen. From this we can tell that it's a spin half particle. Because if it's a spin half particle, we know that the magnetic moment mu, which is given by gamma s, is quantized. How do we know that? If s is the angular momentum, we take the z component of the angular momentum, Sc, we take the z component of the magnetic moment, mu-z. Gamma is just the gyromagnetic ratio. Now whenever there is a magnetic moment that is placed inside a field gradient, it experiences a force. The force is given by minus mu gradient of the magnetic field, right? We've already learned that. So the force is given by, since the gradient is just in the z direction, the force will be given by minus mu z partial v partial z, right? Now mu z is given by this expression. Mu z is gamma Sc, and gamma in itself is negative for an electron. So if I take this gamma to be positive, I can put a negative sign here. If I put a negative sign here, the mu z becomes, the force becomes the magnitude of the force. Becomes gamma Sc partial V over partial Z. This is just the gradient of the magnetic field. Let's call this gradient G. Right? So I get gamma G Sc. This is the force. Now we know that Sg is quantized. How do we know that? Because if we input a certain state, a certain quantum state, and our relevant degree of freedom is the spin of the electron, suppose the state that we input is really ket z plus minus ket z over under root 2. Right? Alright. So now if we observe Sc, the z component of the angular momentum, there are two possibilities. If Sg acts on plus z, we get the measurement outcome h bar over 2 z. So if this channel is populated, the measurement outcome is h bar over 2. This is just a spin analyzer, like the polarization analyzer. It's splitting the input electron into its eigenstates, the plus z and the minus z. The other possibility is that you obtain a new state minus z. So if the operator Sc acts on the state minus z, the measurement outcome is minus h bar over 2 minus z. So in this case the measurement outcome is plus h bar over 2. In this case the measurement outcome is minus h bar over 2. and if you input single electrons one at a time, each electron being prepared in this state, then if this channel is populated, that is the electron strikes here, then you know the state of this electron. This electron has to be in the state ket Z. Now you repeat the experiment with an identically prepared electron, but a different electron. If you find an electron in this channel, you know that this electron has been prepared in this state minus Z. So you put in electrons one at a time, there is a certain probability that an electron will impinge here and a certain probability that an electron will impinge here. Your measurement operator is SZ. Alright? So the measurement outcome associated with an electron impinging here is just the eigenvalue, h bar over 2. So this is the angular momentum that will be measured if the electron comes here. If the electron happens to appear here, the measurement outcome is minus h bar over 2, which is the eigenvalue associated with the other eigenstate. Right? So this is something that you already know. And how do you corroborate this with this finding? Sz is the z component of the angular momentum, and it has two possibilities, plus h bar over 2 and minus h bar over 2. Only two possibilities, which means that Sz is really quantized. Right? So an observable, a measurement, is becoming quantized. It cannot take on arbitrary values. It can only take up two definite values, plus h bar over 2 and minus h bar over 2. So the force that is acting on these electrons can only take up two possible values. Gamma, G, Sz can be plus h bar over 2 or minus h bar over 2. So the force is quantized. Classically, you would expect the magnetic moments to be pointing parallel to Z and be parallel to Z, and all magnetic moments in between should be possible, because these electrons are at a certain temperature. So thermal agitation would make the magnetic moments point in arbitrary directions. So classically, you cannot expect these two discrete spots on the screen. Classically, you would expect a smear of electrons. But this is not what you observe. You only observe two discrete spots, which means that the angular momentum is quantized. The z component of the angular momentum is quantized. It also means that gamma is quantized. The magnetic moment is quantized. It also means that the force is quantized. And this is the quantization that gives the name quantum mechanics. Your observables become quantized. Alright? Now what's the probability that the electron will end up here? You simply find your input state psi. Let's call this state psi. The probability that you receive the measurement outcome h bar over 2, given an input state psi, according to the postulates of quantum mechanics, is just the inner product of your input state with the eigenstate that corresponds to this eigenvalue, which is Z, modulo squared. And this is simply 1/2. So there is a 50% probability that the electron, which has been prepared in this state, will end up here, and a 50% probability that the electron will end up here. What's the expectation value of the Sz measurement? 0. If you prepare this state. If you prepare this state, all the electrons will always end up here with a 100% probability. Right? So this is something that we already know. And from this experiment, you can actually tell that the spin of an electron is 1/2. Okay, it's a spin half particle, because you're observing the beam to split up into two. But spin half, there's nothing special with spin half. It's just a particular case of the angular momentum. Suppose I repeat this experiment, not with electrons, but with, so I have hydrogen gas here. Okay. It's inside an oven. I raise the temperature of the hydrogen gas to about say 5000 kelvins. This is a huge temperature, by the way. It's the temperature on the surface of the sun. It's about 5000 kelvins. So a plasma is created. So you have protons and electrons. Now suppose you make a slit inside this oven and you apply a positive potential here, sorry, a negative potential here on this screen. So the protons will be attracted. So protons will come out from the oven, they will be attracted towards the negatively charged screen and you will have a collimated beam of protons. It's like a beam of protons instead of a beam of electrons. Now if you pass this beam of protons through a Stern-Gerlach apparatus which is measuring SZ, this is just a conceptual version of the inhomogeneous field that I have drawn over here. You will again observe that the beam will split up into two. So these protons could come in as a beam, many at a time or one at a time, it doesn't really matter. If these protons come in one at a time, sometimes the proton will end up here, sometimes the proton will end up here with certain probabilities. So you put a screen here, you will observe two distinct spots. This also shows that the proton is a spin half particle. There are two eigenstates. The dimensionality of the Hilbert space is 2. It's a spin half particle. Proton has spin small s half, right? I'll tell you later what the small s means. I can repeat this experiment with neutrons instead of protons. Neutrons are also spin half particles. They will split up in a Stern-Gerlach experiment into two distinct parts. So neutrons are spin half even though they are uncharged particles. Sorry? Neutrons थर्मल मोशन की वजह से उनकी एक एक्सेलरेशन होगी. ठीक है, 25 milli electron volts, they are called thermal neutrons. In a nuclear reactor, you have electrons that have certain velocity. You put velocity selectors and neutrons are randomly moving in all directions. You select neutrons moving with a certain velocity, right? As happens in nuclear reactors. ठीक है, neutrons को भी आप ये experiment perform करेंगे, you'll get two distinct patterns. Now suppose instead of hydrogen gas, I use D2 gas. Do you know what's D2? Deuterium. Now the protons are nuclei of hydrogen. They are single protons, right? The hydrogen nucleus is just a proton. Now what's the nucleus of deuterium? Yeah, one neutron. It's one neutron and one proton. So the nucleus is a combination of a proton and a neutron. And if you repeat the experiment with deuterium nuclei, which are called deuterons, what will you observe? You will observe three prongs of the fork. तीन आपको branches नजर आएंगे. एक, दो, तीन. This yellow is what you will observe with deuterium nuclei. So each deuterium nucleus is in fact a spin 1 particle. S equals 1. It's not a spin half particle. It's a spin 1 particle. So particles, whether they are elementary particles like electrons, leptons, or whether they are conglomerates like nuclei, they have certain spin or certain angular momentum. An electron inside the hydrogen atom, for example, we'll learn about this later, but if an electron is in the K shell, it has a certain angular momentum. If the electron is in the L shell, it has another angular momentum. If it's in the M shell, it has some other angular momentum. In the K shell, it has zero orbital angular momentum. but it has some spin angular momentum. In the L shell, it has some orbital angular momentum under h bar, and it also has some spin angular momentum. In the M shell, it has some orbital angular momentum, and it also has some spin angular momentum. So electrons in different orbits of the hydrogen atom can have different angular momentum, right? Even though it's a spin half particle, because then you have to take into account the orbital angular momentum of the electron. So in general, there's nothing special about spin half particles. Spin half particles are just a special case of a large variety of possibilities of the angular momentum. Okay. And this is something that we would like to learn about. Okay. So just like we have denoted S as the spin angular momentum, and we would like to put a hat on top of it, and let's call it the spin angular momentum operator. Generalized angular momenta are denoted by J. So this is an observable, so I can represent this by J hat. It will have the three components Jx, Jy, Jz. Okay. And there are certain commutation relationships between these angular momentum operators. So, and the commutation relationships are analogous to what we learned about spin half particle. So if I take the x component of the angular momentum, commute it with the y component, I will get iota h bar gz, right? And all its cyclic variations. Now these are individual components of the angular momentum. Now remember, these x, y and z represent their components in the lab frame. What is the angular momentum along the x-axis? Which is a lab frame, which is what you're measuring. What do you measure about? What can you say about the y component of the angular momentum? It's in the lab frame. Okay. So these angular momenta, these components don't commute. So they are incompatible observables. You cannot measure two components at the same time with zero imprecision. The indeterminacy principle has to hold. So if you measure the x component, the y component will be disturbed. If you measure the y component without measuring the x component, you will get a different result from when you would measure the x component. So these are not independent. The x component becomes dependent on the y component or what kind of measurement you do. Right? So there is a commutation relationship between these operators. Likewise, we can also define J squared, right? Which is another operator. Okay. Now the property of J squared is that it commutes with Jz. Just as S squared commutes with Sz, likewise J squared commutes with Jz. So the total angular momentum squared commutes with any one component. It commutes with Jx, it commutes with Jy, right? हमने स्पिन हाफ के लिए प्रॉपर्टीज प्रूव की. अब what would we like to do? We have arbitrary angular momentum. Could be spin 0, could be angular momentum, could be 0, could be 1/2, could be 1, could be 3/2, could be 16/5. Let's see what are the different possibilities. And what we are interested in finding out, in other words, is what are the eigenstates and eigenvalues of the angular momentum operators. This is something that we would like to find out first. Now something that we've learned from the previous class is that if we have two operators A and B which commute, which means they are compatible observables, then A and B will have common eigenstates. So if I choose lambda to be a common eigenstate of A and B, then I can associate some eigenvalue A, small a, which is an eigenvalue of the operator A. Now this eigenstate of A will also be an eigenstate of B, probably with some other eigenvalue, with a distinct eigenvalue, correct? So each of these eigenstates, if the eigenstate is operated on by operator A, I get an eigenvalue A. Okay. If the same eigenstate to the operator B is operated on by operator B, I get an eigenvalue B. ठीक है? ये बात याद आपको याद है पिछले लेक्चर में? इसका मतलब ये है कि ये जो eigenstate है, इसको हम लेबल कर सकते हैं as, let's try to label this eigenstate. देखो ये लेबल्स है ना, लैम्डा कह दें इसको, अल्फा कह दें, बीटा कह दें, ये हमारी दानिश में जो कुछ भी आता है, जो भी लेटर्स हम इस्तेमाल करके ये लेबल्स इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं. तो पिक्चर बना दें यहाँ पे, it doesn't really matter. So for our convenience, we can also label these states as A comma B. Right? Instead of lambda, I'm writing A comma B. So if A acts on this, I get the eigenvalue in the first position, A comma B, right? And if B acts on this eigenstate, A comma B, I get the second, what I've written, the label that I've written in the second position. Right? So it's just notation, nothing to worry about. ठीक है? अब ये वाली हम ये जो लेबलिंग स्कीम है उसको जरा इस्तेमाल करने की कोशिश करते हैं. Now we notice that J square commutes with Jz. Now these are compatible observables, which means that it has to be a set of eigenstates to J square which also serve as eigenstates to Jz. Or there is this basis that is a simultaneous eigenbasis for Jz and J square. Alright? So let's label these eigenstates. Okay? And let's label them as alpha, comma, m. ठीक है, हम label कर देते हैं. These are the common eigenstates of J square and Jz, such that if J square acts on this state, I get this variable, this eigenvalue alpha, alpha comma m. Alright? समझ गए? ठीक है ना? चूंकि ये eigenstate है J square की, you recover the eigenstate with some eigenvalue. Let's call that eigenvalue alpha. ठीक है? लेकिन मैं चाहता हूँ कि जो eigenvalue है इसकी क्या dimension होगी? Eigenvalue, the eigenvalue is a measurement outcome. I'm measuring an observable. So what are the dimensions of this eigenvalue? क्या dimension होगी? मेरा सवाल ये है कि जो eigenvalue है, ये measurement outcome है ना, मैं कुछ measure करने जा रहा हूँ जिसका जवाब मुझे, मैं कुछ सवाल पूछता हूँ, जवाब आता है. सवाल क्या पूछ रहा हूँ भाई? एंगुलर मोमेंटम का स्क्वायर क्या है? जवाब eigenvalue है. तो इसकी क्या डायमेंशन होगी इस eigenvalue? भूल जाओ बस, जुबानी का फोर्स के होंगे, मैग्नेटिक मोमेंट के होंगे, एंगुलर मोमेंटम के होंगे, एंगुलर मोमेंटम के स्क्वायर. ठीक है, तो यानी इसके यूनिट्स में h बार स्क्वायर आना चाहिए. ठीक है, तो मैं खुद से h बार स्क्वायर डाल देता हूँ. ठीक है, तो ये अल्फा एक डायमेंशनलेस नंबर है. द आइगन वैल्यू इज ऑल ऑफ दिस, राइट? दिस इज द आइगन वैल्यू अल्फा h बार स्क्वायर.
इसमें ताकि अल्फा की एक न्यूमेरिकल वैल्यू,
अल्फा की एक न्यूमेरिकल वैल्यू है.
इनिशियली अल्फा के लिए
अल्फा कैन बी
इनिशियली अल्फा के लिए दोनों चीजें
मैंने इनिशियली मैंने इस अल्फा को मैं डायमेंशनलेस रखना चाह रहा हूँ अपने फायदे के लिए। Likewise, JZ acts on the same eigenstate. Now the same eigenstate qualifies as an eigenstate of the compatible observable JZ. I recover alpha m. The dimensions of the eigenvalue must be angular momentum. You can measure the component of an angular momentum. So I get h bar, ठीक है, और m square, क्योंकि ये angular momentum है, ये angular momentum की square है, ठीक है. So these are my starting conditions. All right. Now what I would like to do, I would like to find out the limits on the eigenvalues. What I would like to find out is whether all possibilities of alpha and m are allowed. हमने पहले ये देखा जब स्ट्रिंग की बात कर रहे हैं कि SZ can only have two possibilities, plus h bar over 2 and minus h bar over 2. Only two possibilities, nothing else. So what are the restrictions on the values of these eigenvalues? हर चीज क्वांटाइज हो रही, क्वांटम मैकेनिक्स में सब चीजें, ज्यादातर चीजें क्वांटाइज होती भी आपको नजर आएंगी. और पहले हमने देखा कि भी जे एस जी में प्लस एच बार ओवर 2 आ रहा है और माइनस एच बार ओवर 2 आ रहा है. अब हम समझेंगे वो क्यों आ रहा है. ठीक है, ऑलराइट. सो लेट्स नाउ फाइंड दिस इनर प्रोडक्ट जे स्क्वायर अल्फा m, राइट, अल्फा m. So I pick up an eigenvalue of j square and find the expectation value of j square. Now this turns out to be, now j square can be written as jx square plus jy square plus jz square alpha m. Now if you look at the left hand side, j square alpha m. Okay. Now this is equal to alpha m jx mod square alpha m plus alpha m jy mod square alpha m plus alpha m jz hat square alpha m. Okay. Now what is this equal to? h square alpha क्यों, jz का स्क्वायर h bar square m square, right? कैसे?